Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here with Sterling.
Oh, it doesn't get better than that.
Oh, man, it's been a busy day in SPTV world, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, do me a favor. Tap your mic. Just tap your mic real quick. Okay, good. Now bring that sucker as close to your mouth as possible.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
No, bring it closer.
Hello.
No,
oh, come on.
Bring it closer.
No, I've got this thing set for like a special setting that allows it to go really far from your mouth. Can you hear me now?
Your setting is full of shit. Just bring the mic as close to your face as mine is.
Okay, here we go. 1 second. Oh.
People are going to be in the chat being like, we can't hear Sterling.
Oh, my goodness. You're like Mark with Claire all of a sudden. Here we go. How about that? How about that? Is that better? Is that better?
What word has not been fully understood?
God, get it done. All right, there we go. I think that's better, right?
That's fine.
Wait,
I'll burn my a little further.
Because I'm even going a little orange here, which is mean I'm blowing it out. I think it's your speakers.
Oh no! I'm not saying talk louder. Talk quietly. Speak quietly. Go ahead. In fact, this microphone loves when you speak quietly.
It does.
Oh,
okay.
It will sound even better if we speak quietly.
And that's tech support by Aaron Smith Levin.
You'd be shocked. You think you could practically whisper into this thing and it actually sounds incredible.
I totally get it.
In fact, it's why I only wear one earbud so that I don't it cuts down on my feeling that I need to speak loudly.
Interesting. So I have my speakers on in front of me. And so I have those turned up, but you don't hear the reverb on that, right?
You're not even using earbuds?
No.
I don't hear any echo at all.
Yeah, no. I've got a
I hear it now.
Speaker set. Oh, you can hear it now?
Why aren't you using earbuds?
Because I'm not as cool as you.
That's okay. I'll tell you what. You sound like you're in an echoey room, but I'm not hearing my own reverb, so it sounds great.
Yes, I got these right here. I got everything. I mean, that's better than wearing the big old headset, which I've also got like 5 pairs of those. But
I can't stand wearing the headsets because I get all sweaty. My head gets hot,
Yeah, and it would mess up my do, so I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Did you get a haircut? It looks good.
I did get a haircut, finally. Yeah. I was running over. Well, hey, I saw your interview with Vanessa. Fantastic. Really, really good. I loved her message. I thought that was really on point and sweet.
Thank you. We're going to do a bunch of those.
No, really. I really enjoyed it thoroughly. So that was great.
Nice. Well, for anyone who's not yet familiar with Sterling, you can find Sterling on YouTube at Sterling Tompkins. Well, his name is Sterling Tompkins, and his handle is at Leaving Scientology, Loving Life. I love it. Hey, you been doing any live streams this week?
I did a test of my new intro last night. Cool. And someone said it's too long. So I wrote back on that comment. I said, that's exactly what Aaron said. But no,
anything over 10 seconds. How long is the intro?
Well, I cut it down now. I think it was 12 seconds.
Oh, that's not terrible.
No, but I get why. I can understand that. You know what? It's I kind of surveyed it. So I brought it down a little bit, adjusted the color a little bit and the volume a little bit and made it more natural, I think. So it'll be fun. But the quote I had on there was fantastic. And I should send that to you. The quote was from a psychologist that actually ran the Stanford experiment. Do you know what that is? You remember that?
Yes.
And he talks about a cult becomes a cult when the person's running the situation become too controlling and demanding of the people they work with. And that's when it starts becoming a cult, which I found fascinatingly similar to what our experience is in Scientology. So, hey.
I don't think I've actually, it wasn't just a movie, right? Like it was a book.
I think it was an experiment, and then I think it was a book, and then yes, they eventually made a movie of it. I've never seen the movie. I think it's a little too dark, a little bit too close to home for me to watch that. So I haven't watched the movie. I've just read articles about it.
It's funny because I know exactly what it's all about, even though I've never actually watched it. I've just, I've seen so many podcasts where they talk about it.
Interesting.
Let me see. Yeah. I'm trying to maneuver here behind the scenes to share another photograph that you shared another family photo.
I did share another family photo. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can we tell everyone who's up? My trackpad's not wanting to cooperate with me. Who are we looking at here?
Well, that would be a close friend of mine who was at the Int Ranch with me. His name's Mike Brown. And he's left since this time. And obviously that's me in the middle, embarrassingly wearing a Rockies t-shirt. And that is my twin brother, Justin, on the, what would be everyone's far right, I guess. Yeah. I mean, do I need to explain which one's Justin? It should be obvious by now.
Yeah, people always struggle. It's amazing. You had a fantastic photo of him. Usually you just see him blurry. You know, a lot of people fake appearances of Justin, but it's good to see Justin being out loud and proud, just being his true self there.
Yeah, you know, and I've been talking to my mom at the interviews, and so she sent me this photo yesterday, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense, because that's really how I remember him.
That's great. I can see the resemblance.
Yeah, he's a little taller, but you know, hey, it's the hair.
There you go. There you go. All right. So you wanted to talk today about people leaving Scientology, leaving the Sea organization, who've never really had any exposure to the outside world, and how they get treated by Scientology and stuff. Are there like specific people that you have in mind talking about this, or is it a general thing?
It's a general, but I think I have a couple stories related to it. And as I've been hearing everyone's stories recently, it is something that, you know, became apparent that while that is it's one of the most insidious and vicious things I think they do, because and that's a general statement. I'm just going to talk about the people that control Scientology or deal with those sort of lines of people leaving. You failing would be their biggest success, right? It would show other people that are still there that leaving's dangerous, and you're not going to get anywhere, and you don't have any particular set of skills. And in some cases, that's actually true. But instead of building your confidence and trying to help you out, they just send you out. And there's no, and as we know, they send you out with about $500. And I know that varies in different cases, but we're going to talk about myself in particular. But they send you out with $500, which is nothing. They also send you out with a freeloader's debt. Now, in my particular case, never, ever did I ever consider giving any money back to Scientology or the Sea Org. When I left, in my mind, I was like, well, you guys owe me money. There's no way this is going the other way around. And I even eventually got called about that at some point, and got in a fight because my little brother, Nathan, was doing an ethics handling. And do I need to explain what ethics handling is? Is that
probably not.
Okay.
Did he rat you out?
No. So he was at Flag still, and they knew I was they knew I was disaffected with Scientology and that whole process. And they he had gotten hurt and he wanted to get back on the road because he was driving people at this particular point. And he got me on the phone with the MAA on the phone as well, the Master at Arms, the ethics officer, the Julian Schwartz of Flag, and tried to just get me to tell him that I was going to pay my freeloader's debt. and he even told me, Sterling, please just tell them, it'll help me out so much. Just tell them you're going to pay your freeloader's debt, and it'll make it all better. And I actually started yelling on the phone because I wouldn't not even give into the fact. And I just started saying, no, you guys owe me money. This is complete horseshit. You owe me money. I'm not paying you a single cent. And this went on for about 30 minutes. Eventually, Nathan did not get his clearance to drive again for a while just because I did that. And when he eventually left, he told me the whole story from his end. I felt a little bad for him, but not totally, because, you know, calling me and forcing me to say something was not really, if anyone knows my personality, that's not going to work at all with me. But that being said, so it is so unceremonious when you leave. Different cases, sometimes they will pretend to try to help you and maybe set you up with a Scientology company. But if they do that, their sole purpose is to keep tabs on you, to keep an eye on you, to make sure that there is some sort of control factor. Because if you work for a Scientology company, they can rip that out from under your feet any moment, right? Yep. And so I never wanted to do that. I did get set up with someone at the time who was a friend of my twin, Justin, a close friend of his at the time. But unbeknownst to me, he had been reporting back to OSA, Office of Special Affairs, on a somewhat regular basis. And we covered that a little bit in an interview with Mark Claire and Amy.
Who was it?
It was Daniel Christian. I don't know if you know him. I don't think you would.
So is he he's not related to Rebecca Christian. No, that was Rebecca Christensen. Daniel Christian. I feel like I know who his sister was. Did he have a sister?
Yes, he did. Stephanie Christian.
And I forget.
Tall girl, blonde hair. Or I guess was blonde at one point.
Anyway, I'm getting people mixed up. Is he now totally out, or is he like still a Scientology spy or still a Scientologist?
I believe he's totally out. I also don't believe I
don't want to
reason.
be mean to him then.
What?
I don't want to be mean to him then.
Well, no, and I believe now at this point in his life, he no longer has any connection with the Church of Scientology. I want to believe that. And his sister Stephanie is a really nice lady, and it was a longtime friend of mine, very close friend, and she's a sweetheart. I do believe that Daniel has no connection anymore. I couldn't verify that, but his father actually left later on, and bless his heart, he passed away from cancer. But he was also a very nice gentleman.
That's how, because his father, do you remember the name? Because I think he was the course admin, solo one course from AOLA. I think that's how. I can't
remember his name, but you know his mom. His mom was like the lead auditor at AOLA, Diane Christian.
Yes. Okay.
I knew you'd know her.
By the way, for those of you watching, the fact that all the Scientologists you hear from know each other is just one piece of evidence on how small Scientology really is.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's so true. All right, I'm sorry. I cut you off. I got you all sidetracked.
No,
it's good. It's good. Yeah. So really it's like, it was an interesting scenario. So in my case, as I'm leaving, I'm being told, you can't use the skills we taught you inside Scientology. And so
they actually told you that?
Yes. And again, this is an individual experience because it really depends on the person that I was dealing with. Now, the person that I was dealing with or that I had any communication with, I was not a big fan of, and I'm no longer a big fan of his. He is out now. But in my mind, and I'm going to call him out just because, hey, I can. And if he wants to come on and argue with me about it, he's welcome to. But his name's Chris Geider. And a monumental piece of shit in my books. And I'll tell you why in a second. Something he did to my dad after I left was just, to me, unforgivable. But he was one of the people as I was leaving that said that. And ironically was the guy that wrote the declare order that declared me for going to a baseball game on the 4th of July. Same person. And the person that was checking me when I made up the entire story about having a sexual affair in the marketing unit at Gold. That same person that I embarrassed in session at Golden Era Productions. So I had a little bit of a track with this gentleman.
Wait, you made up a fake story about sleeping with a real person?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I did. You get to that point. Where okay, so if you've been interrogated for the first 6 months of the year, at a certain point, you realize there's nothing else you can talk about. You really just cannot. There's nothing else. You can't even think of anything else. And so the illusion that you're under the control of this device begins to fade away. And that started happening for me. And so I was going through this next section of interrogations because I had mismeasured something on the dust jacket for these L. Ron Hubbard books by, just so we're clear, fraction of an inch. And so I was sent for interrogation.
As Mark Headley would call it, 6 inches.
6 centimeters. Okay, I'm not supposed to laugh at that. It's not funny. Mark, I still love you, man. So I'm in this interrogation and Dave had this, and we're bouncing all over the place, but it is going to all tie back in. And do not let me forget, please, to tell you about Justin and Tommy Davis' story.
Okay, I'm going to write it down.
It's a doozy. I have it in my little notes here, but I don't want to forget about it because it's actually pretty funny. Okay, so I'm getting this interrogation, and Dave has this obsession with, this was the interrogation I mentioned when he wanted to check if I worked for the CIA. and then who's Sterling sleeping with, because he had this obsession with people sleeping with other people or any sort of sexual activities. Also, for whatever reason, he had that particularly with me. Even when I was dating my future wife, I was just dating her, and I was down after the New Year's event in LA. He made a comment to me, "So did you go out to eat with Suzette?" I'm like, "What?" Like, and I'd maybe seen her twice, you know, and kissed her on a bus or something like that. And so he had some sort of obsession with that, particularly with me. Don't know why. But I'm in this interrogation with Chris Guider down in building 36, which is one of the properties at Golden Era Productions. Jackson talks about it all the time. And I'm just like getting fed up with it. And just this idea creeps in the back of my mind. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just make up a pretty extreme story, spend about 30 minutes describing it to him in detail, and then see what happens, and see if at the end he gives me the nod and lets me know if my needle's floating or not. So I just start on this story. And there's a lot of times where we would work, you know, to the middle of the night, 3 o'clock or overnight, and we're all up there, maybe a group of 5 or 6 of us. So I start making up this story about how, you know, everyone would go home, and I would be up in the marketing unit, and the entire marketing unit was one whole floor with cubicles and dividers that were about, you know, 40 inches high. So just, you know, about chest level.
Hold on. We got to set the mood. This is Dianetics After Dark.
Yes. No, this should be, we should recreate this somehow. And
go ahead. Tell us the rest of the story.
So the temperature, it was a balmy 72. The lights were flickering. The floor was hard because it was a painted concrete, but still cold to the touch. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm terrible at that. But okay, so we had these artist tables, and I don't know if you know an artist table. It flips. You can flip it up so you can lay art on it flat, looking at it, or you can. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Dick. I hate Chris Guider. Anyways, or you can flip them down. So there's this. I don't know if I should mention the name of the girl.
Go ahead. I mean, you didn't do anything.
That's true. Because she was actually, again, a sweetheart. Her name's Manu Del Francia. So
Manu Del Francia, is that Italian?
You know, I think she was half Italian and half French. She definitely spoke French. Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, and just she was a really bright, really nice, but really, really beautiful lady, and about my age. And I'd always had a little bit of a crush on her. And even when we were going to school together for a little bit, we kind of had a little bit of something.
Oh, so there's something to this story.
Well, it was just easy to instantly create, right? So I start telling this whole story about how when everyone leaves, we go up there and we're basically getting it on the artist tables next to the filing cabinets, and she bent over the table, all this sort of stuff, and then I kind of, my imagination wasn't too great at that moment in time, but I go for 20 minutes. In the story, not in I told the story for 20 minutes. I didn't go for 20 minutes, just to be clear. But in the story, it was much faster. But so getting R-rated. Yeah, I saw that. Choctaw Nation, who has a crush on my twin brother. Okay, here we go. So I make up this whole story. I'm done with it, and I'm just looking at Chris Guider, and he's looking at me. He's going, "Okay, is that all there is?" And I said, "That's all there is." He goes, "Thank you very much." And I went, "You're welcome." Did that read on the e-meter? He goes, "Yeah, it did." I said, and then right away I said, "You're a fucking idiot. You know that, right?" And he was like, "What? I made that entire story up. Are you kidding me? That's so stupid. Like, you believe that?" And he was just embarrassed. And I actually don't remember what happened right after that. He didn't really get that upset at me for it, but I was just, that was the point when I really knew the e-meter didn't affect me anymore. And never again, when I ever got put on the meter, was I ever nervous or worried about anything. It was like, yeah, okay, we're done. That's it. Simple.
Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah. And I left Gold Base like 2 days after that. And the story of getting out after that is a whole long story, but I left the Gold Base after that. And I knew once I left the base there was no way I was coming back. So I kind of set that threshold. Once I crossed that line, I'm out. It just took a while to do it because I didn't want to blow, because I would lose contact with my mom and my dad, Foster and Barbara at the time. So I wasn't going to go there. So I tried to do it the right way. And that was about a 2-year process.
Wow.
From the time I left Golden Air Productions, went to the Int Ranch to do, well, I actually slept for like 3 days straight. And they tried to get me to do physical labor, and I refused to do it. I absolutely refused to do physical labor after this. Because again, once the e-meter doesn't work and you're not scared of anyone, they have no effect on you. None. It's just like it wipes out. There's no more control.
Wow. So then when you're routing out, they tell you specifically, you cannot use any of the skills you learned while working for us for free for all these years.
You got it. Absolutely said that to me.
What, for example, did they think that included?
Yeah, that's what I was asking. It's like, yeah, I'm a little old to be a professional baseball player, so thank you for that. That would have been my chosen path. And I was in trees forever, right? So I love trees. I mean, being an arborist is a blast. Not what I wanted to do when I left at all. And so I had these random set of skills with Photoshop, Adobe products, Premiere, Photoshop, Illustrator, but I was good at them. I wasn't great at them. So I couldn't just step into it and just take off running with it. So, and it did throw me in a little bit of a loop when I first got out, because I was like, what do I do? And I wasn't confident enough to try to pursue something like that. So, and that gets right back to, okay, so let's talk about it. So they send me off. Okay. Here's what Chris Guider does. And I'm assuming now he probably did this because he was pissed at me. What happened was, I get the declare order for doing the baseball game. I get sent to Atlanta, Georgia. And I think I mentioned this to you earlier. I get sent to this family. It's a husband and wife with 2 kids. I got this beautiful house in Atlanta, and I get sent there with my declare order. And this is basically other people that are declared. So I was going to work with them to get back in good graces. But when they told me I was leaving, they didn't let Foster and Barbara talk to me. They put me on camera to sign an affidavit saying I wouldn't talk about anything, and they recorded that whole thing. I so wanted to get out of there that I didn't care they were sending me to Atlanta or a place I hadn't been. I just wanted out. I was like, please get me out of here. I'm done with this. What I could not believe is that they didn't put together the fact that Ronnie and Biddy were in Virginia at this time, and they had already left, that I wouldn't contact them. And say, hey, I want to come live with you until I get on my feet, which would be the perfect case, right? That if you're with your parents, they're going to help out. They're going to have contacts. They're going to do all these sort of things. So of course I land in Atlanta, and one of the first things I do is contact Biddy and Ronnie. And I've mentioned this on, I believe, Mark's channel, but Biddy and Ronnie kind of fucked that up. I would have been out of Scientology a whole year earlier had they not, but out of some sort of misguided courtesy, I believe Ronnie or Biddy called OSA and said, hey, we know Sterling's in Atlanta. We're going to take him in because this is Biddy's son, and he should be with us. So the second that happened, that went all the way up to RTC, of course. I believe actually Shelly heard about it, and I got called back to LA right away with a promise that that if I came back and routed out properly, I could talk to my mom and dad again, which is really what I was mostly heartbroken about. My week in Atlanta was awesome, by the way. This guy was a big movie buff, and he had a giant basement with a big screen TV. So he said, hey, look, I know how long it takes to decompress and stuff. So here, have you seen The Godfather? I said, no. Here's all three movies of The Godfather and the rest of my library. Knock yourself out. I watched movies for 7 days straight, and then slept and ate and did nothing else before I came back for a brief stint. But yeah,
I'll tell you, when we left this year, a Blockbuster lost money on me. You know, this Blockbuster had just started doing their thing to compete with Netflix, so you could go in and rent a movie and then turn in the movie. But then, oh no, what was it? Oh, they were doing the mail-in discs.
Yeah.
But when you sent your disc back in, they would give you a voucher. You could like go rent 3 movies for free until you got your next disc. I would watch like literally 3 movies a day. And this is even while I was working a job. I'd come home. I'd be like, movies, nothing but movies.
There we go. No, that's and could you mind if I ask you what in that time period, what movie was your favorite? What was, do you have one, or am I going way too deep?
I have sort of favorite movies in different categories, sort of, and even that changes over time. But I just anything and everything.
Everything you could catch up on. Anything in pop culture. No, I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I get back, and this is the Chris Guider part of the story. I get back, and so when they had sent me, they had, believe it or not, they had taken my ticket out of the $500 I was supposed to get for leaving. So they sent me with only $250.
Yeah.
Well, not only did they take that like they had spent it, what actually happened was that when I got back, they had actually made Foster pay that $250. No, Chris Guider had to pay back that $250 because he should have never sent me. And what Chris Guider then did was go tell my dad, who is now in LA, no longer a senior person. Chris Guider was still at Gold. He made my dad pay him the $250 for my ticket.
Wow.
Which me, completely unforgivable, because he knew my dad had a little bit of money from an inheritance. And I mixed that up a little bit, how it all went. But what did happen at one point was somehow Guider was charged for my ticket because of something he did wrong, and then went and milked it out of my dad, which was, to me, just unforgivable.
Wow.
So I'm back in PAC for a while. And that's, we could talk about that now. We might as well. Let's knock it out, because this leads all the way through the whole thing. So I'm back at PAC thinking I'm going to talk to my dad and everything's going to be good. This is the infamous, I walk into his room during the day when he's at work with my mom. And I'm just walking past the bed and the shelf in the dresser area. And I see a family photo. And I noticed that my face had been cut out of the photo. I think I don't know if I mentioned this to you before.
No, you mentioned it to me.
Okay. And then I opened up the family photo album, and, in the limited amount of time a SEER staff member has for free time, I guess my stepmom, Barbara, saw fit to spend time and borrow the scissors and go cut all my pictures out of all the photos. And I'd only been gone for 1 week.
So literally, your face is just cut out, yes, or your whole body, or what? Face.
And then I guess if there was a few that were
like cut. Some serial killer shit.
Right. And she's normally the nicest person. So I don't know how or what was happening there. But that got me a little bit. Anyways, I'm back there. And this is a recurring nightmare I had, because I'm back. I just want to talk to Foster and Barbara. They're treating me really nice. I don't have to go anywhere. I'm in a whole room by myself. Everything's like just a little bit better. And then I began to start getting the idea, maybe I go back, maybe I stay, which when I think about now actually gives me anxiety. And then after I left, I had those nightmares for about, 5 or 6 years where I'm back at a muster in the morning at Golden Air Productions, and having to, stay straight in line and not get called out. But so I'm back and forth trying to decide whether to stay or not. I told the story before. Part of it was I go down with Foster on a Friday night staff meeting, or Saturday night tape play or something like that. And I see a video of a basic book video or lecture, where they did a video along with the lecture. So it's like a complimentary video that goes with it. And I was in that one, and they'd actually spent the time to change my face, so I was unrecognizable for that video, which was kind of crazy since I was still actually there. And that was the final straw. The next day I said, I'm out, I'm done. And that's when I went down to Daniel Christian's. But the point of what I'm saying, and it's different with every person, because I know some people that got some money. I know some people that got nothing. I know some people that had an unbelievable skill set, like Like they spent their entire time in the cinematography division of Golden Era Productions. So this person knew editing software and did IT support for editing software. And so he literally walked out and got a job in a second. And he was also told, you cannot go work in that field. You cannot go work in that field. You're not allowed to go make contacts with anyone that you knew while you were there. Because, obviously when you work in cinematography, you're dealing with outside professionals a lot. Yeah. Anyways, in the end, he ignored that and he went out and did it on his own. And he's got a great career and makes, a boatload of money. There's another kid named John Lindstein. Same thing. Super talented special effects guy. He can do 10 different things, which would normally take 10 people to do on a post-production. He was so skilled, he can do them all. And he went out and he gave the big middle finger and said, no, I'm going to do what I want. And he also does that now and super talented, but it differs for each person. But
well, and Sterling, for those watching, just imagine an organization that thinks it actually has the standing, the authority to tell you such a thing and expect that you would comply.
Right.
It's amazing. I remember we were told when we left the Sea Org, you don't have permission to live in Clearwater.
Right.
And we were like, well, of course that's where we're going. That's where my wife's family lives. Where the fuck do you think we're going?
The audacity, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and that's why I was out of LA. That's why they wanted me out of LA. That's why I was sent to Atlanta. They didn't want me anywhere near. They have this weird craving to make sure that the person that was in the Sea Org or Scientology in a particular location has to relocate. And that's all for optics, right? That's so they don't want someone seeing you out there, because guess what? You were probably, I don't know if you were well liked, you were a big KR writer, but you were probably I'm never gonna let that go. You were probably very well known.
Some of us took our jobs seriously, Sterling.
Very seriously. Please, I'm waiting for that series so I can do. Look at when you do your KR writing series, or your report writing series. I promise you, I will be there to do commentary video for you.
What we should do we should do them together. Like we'll go through my KRs together.
Okay, good. And I'll be the person you're writing on, and I'll tell you what my reaction would have been once I saw your report. How much I would have wanted to kill you. No, but anyways, where was I right before that? Sorry, I got lost in the.
They wanted to get rid of you. Oh, because you'll run into people because optics.
Yeah, because like someone like you're a pretty outgoing person. You're energetic, and no matter what thing you've messed up on, they're going to know, people are still going to know your basic character, and you leaving and not being there anymore just looks bad for them, no matter how they word it or how they try to put it, because you're going to find that a lot of people did admire you or had some favorable opinion. So they got to get you the hell out of there. In some cases, it's also familial ties, of course, and that's probably partially what it was with me. But like with my twin brother, Justin, of course, they made him change. Well, they made him start using his legal last name, Tompkins, when he left, because they didn't want him using Miscavige, of course, because then everyone would realize this is Dave's nephew, and it would look horrible for them. They don't look at, in the end, they just do not care. You are trash once you leave. They're done with you. Not only are they done with you, and they won't help you get that leg up and get started. If you say anything, they'll go out of their way to destroy you. And in that is what really makes them a cult, because that's the sort of behavior that you're not going to find in a whole lot of different religions or even groups. Not saying it's the only thing, because there's so much that makes Scientology a cult. But to me, that's one of the nastier things they do. And you can see the purpose behind it, because if you keep a guy so focused or a gal so focused on just trying to survive, well, that's just another way to keep them quiet, right? They're not going to have the time to spend to do anything else.
Yeah. I mean, you nailed it when you said it right in the beginning. They would love to see an ex-Sea Org member fail. And we're talking about people who are still in good standing with Scientology.
Yeah.
That's not just about people who get declared suppressive persons and expelled from Scientology. If you leave the Sea Org, they would love nothing more than to see you fail, so that they can point to you and tell other Sea Org members, you see what happens when people leave the Sea Org?
Yeah. And they actually even I've heard they even made up stories about people. I know that happened at Golden Era Productions. When Bill Dendu, who was once the head of marketing at Golden Era Productions, when he blew and left, they would they would tell stories, or I believe Dave would comment about these people at meetings saying, oh, you know what this guy's doing? He's just a drug addict, or, blah, blah, blah. And of course, the reason he knew these things was because he had PIs following them. But he would comment on people that have left just to let people know that this is what's going to happen to you if you ever think of leaving. You're gonna be in this group of drug addicts, or, you're going to be participating in dastardly companies or get into pharmaceutical or whatever crazy idea they had. They would always throw something out there like that, just to scare people to not want to leave.
And for all the OSA people who have to watch our videos, we should let you guys know that you're such hard workers that you could walk out of there today and make 50 to 100K working for just about any company who would love to have an employee who works as hard as you guys work. Like, honestly, Dave wants you to all think you'd be lucky to even be flipping burgers.
Exactly.
I can tell you from someone who knows the job market, people would kill for employees who have the work ethic that people who've been in the Sea Org have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And to the people that have recently got out, or even still been out for a while, my only piece of advice or wisdom I can share is that try to find that thing, because none of what I actually did while I was in the Sea organization is the field that I currently am in. But I took the work ethic, I took the ability to read, understand, and duplicate a subject well enough to be able to execute or be competent in that. And again, you actually might end up running circles around most people you work with, just because of that instilled pride and attention to detail that you had to have because you were trying to survive.
Yeah.
When you were there, because
no one in the real world cares whether you went to high school. They care whether you can produce. I don't have a high school diploma, and no one who's ever hired me has given a damn about that. I'll tell you that.
Right. And you have to get, so in some cases, you have to get over that small hurdle about the diploma, because in some resumes they'll and it's absurd to me. Like I've done an interview once for a job that was an assistant, and they wanted 3 years of college and 4 years of being an assistant before you could be entertained for that position. I'm like, what? Like,
they wanted 3 years of college?
Yeah, exactly.
Not 2, not 4.
They want to make sure you failed out of college. I was in a cult, man. I was in a cult. I don't know how many years you go to college. What I know about college comes from Animal House, the movie. Okay, so we're clear. What I know about high school comes from what's that great? Footloose. I would have to say Footloose. Sorry.
That's what you know about high school.
That's what I know about high school. Yeah, right. Yeah, and I can't even dance, so I had no chance. But no, the stuff they do in it's unbelievable. Okay.
Let me stop you, just because there's some people in the chat asking if you have a YouTube channel. So let me just show, guys, for those of you who missed the beginning, this is Sterling's YouTube channel. You can find him at Sterling Tompkins or at Leaving Scientology and Loving Life. All right, so there you go. What the hell were we talking about? I know I interrupted you a couple times.
Oh, don't worry about it. No, we were talking about finding your little niche, your niche.
Oh yeah.
And so when I left, I bounced around to a bunch of stuff. I was doing mortgages when I left because I fought that concept of flipping burgers, and that's not to belittle anyone that is in the service or food industry. And mad respect to waitresses, waiters. I mean, the ability to even remember half of what people say or put up with the personalities you have to do, bravo to you. But I wasn't going to do that because I didn't want, because like you said in your last interview, I still cared what the church thought about me or had some sort of reaction to. So I got into sales doing mortgages. And I was really lucky because I first started working in Beverly Hills for this absolute total trash boiler room type scenario, which I just could not stand. They were just doing mortgages on everybody and
Run
didn't
by
matter.
Scientologist?
No, actually, no, not at all. I refused to work for Scientologists. I worked with Daniel for a little bit, Daniel Christian down in Orange County. Then when I moved up to LA, I worked in Beverly Hills for a while, and then I had a friend that was working with a large networking group, and they needed a person specifically to handle the mortgages section of that. So I got signed on for that, and actually, that is where I met one of my, still to this day, closest friends and biggest supporter, and one of the first people that really, really nailed it down for me that there are good, honest people out here that are absolutely willing to help you. And when you do tell your story or explain it to them, and I think that gets missed a little bit. Some people are ashamed to talk about being in Scientology or their experience. I have found that talking about your experience, sharing that with someone, brings out the empathy, the understanding, and the solid willingness to help out. And so this person that helped me out, his name's Shane. And it's not Shane Clark, who's also a very close friend of mine that was in the Sea with me. His name's Shane. And he took me under his wing and showed me how to do the mortgage business, how to do sales, how to process the mortgages, the loans. And even though by me being in that position, I actually took revenue from him, he still did that. And he helped me buy my first car. He later on, when the industry crashed in 2008, he let me stay at his house until I got back on my feet. And still unbelievably wanted. And he always laughs because I was so naive and so just like I knew nothing about the real world, and he was always just so amused by it. And him and his girlfriend would always take me out for dinner, and he's one of those people that I hope everyone that leaves gets to meet, because it really makes a difference when you have someone like that. It's got a big heart and will do that. And again, up until this day, I still talk to him. I still have lunch with him, and he's a fantastic person. And just
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I mean, people in the Sea Org are so indoctrinated to think that everyone who's not a Scientologist is a degraded criminal, out exchange, drug abusing weirdo. I mean, it was so weird for me being in the Sea Org, already having lived in the real world, because I was in Scientology since I was a kid, but I didn't join the Sea Org until I was 22.
Right.
And I would be in these base briefings where the COCLO, Vicky Shantz, was just saying the most ridiculous things about the outside world. And I'm like,
right.
What kind of fucking morons believe this shit?
Right.
But a lot of people who've never had real world experience and have been born and raised in Scientology and the Sea Org actually believe that shit.
100%. Right. Yeah. That everything's bad. Even the medical world, even doctors are bad to some degree, because they may at some point prescribe a painkiller. I mean, how about you? Did you take Advil and Tylenol when you were a kid? Because I didn't.
Oh, I had to. I get terrible headaches, but Advil works very, very well on me. So even in the Sea Org, I had my Advil always handy. But
interesting.
But most people will tell you that they were not allowed to take painkillers, and I kind of go, you weren't allowed to, or you just wouldn't. Anyway, I want to talk about other people's stories. So like, yes, I always took Advil because I knew I needed it for my headaches.
Right. It was just interesting, right? Because I took Tylenol once as a kid, and it was when I had 102 temperature and I had a toothache, and that was the only time. Other than that, I never took it. And I still actually, it's funny. These are the remnants. These are the things that you hold on to from being there. But still to this day, I've even had an operation, and I was given Percocet for the pain when I got home. And mind you, there wasn't a lot of pain anyways, but I didn't even take it. I was like, no, I'm just not going to take that. Even if the pain's excruciating, because I don't want a drug, which is kind of crazy in a way, because not all drugs are bad, but it's one thing me and my brother Justin share, is that we don't smoke. We don't do drugs. And again, not against people, doing, pot or whatever. And I know it helps with anxiety for some people. I do drink alcohol, just not a lot of it. You can see it behind me. I'm a big tequila fan, but it's funny the things you take with you when you leave. It really is interesting, the things you take with you, and the things you have to get over. But to go back to where we were, so I mentioned the Shane person helped me out, which was amazing. And then I had another close friend that was like, hey, look at she was so good at complimenting people, which is another fantastic I think, skill set that everyone should learn, because it makes a big difference when you can actually acknowledge all the good parts in people, because everyone has their flaws, but what's more important is the good parts of people. And this particular person was so good at that, and she lifted me up so much. She had said that, Sterling, you're really good with people. You're great with kids. You're attentive and you're fun to be around. Why don't you get a job doing something with a family or an assistant type position, or a estate manager type position, because you would just be good at dealing with people and perfect in that position. So after the mortgage crash in 2008, I moved into doing a little bit of post-production stuff. This is where Mark and Claire gave me work for about 2 years. And I did post-production, which, the behind the camera stuff in Hollywood is quite tedious and boring. And you do spend your entire day in front of a computer, which can get really old really fast. And I love personal contact and I love talking to people. So that wasn't, I figured that wasn't really where I was going to do it. So this friend lifted me up. She suggested an agency to go to. I hired on for a summer gig in LA. There was a very wealthy family traveling to LA. They needed security for the kids and nanny, and they needed a driver and someone to help them out around LA. So I did that. I did that for 2 months in LA. And the person I did that for was so appreciative, him and his family, that he said, if you ever are looking for a job, I will fly you out immediately to the country where he was from, which was Saudi Arabia, and I will give you a job and I'll hire you instantly. Now, of course, jumping to Saudi Arabia, that's a little bit of a stretch for me at that point. I couldn't wrap my head around that. And so I said, thank you very much, but I stayed in touch. About 2 or 3 months go by, and I was having trouble finding another job. I mean, the Hollywood stuff, as you know, goes in fits and spurts, right? So you have a bulk period of work, and then there's a downtime, and I couldn't keep up. My income wasn't good enough to have the downtimes. So I called up the guy. I called up the gentleman. I said, hey, I'm ready to do this. I was really nervous about it. I'd actually never been outside the United States. And to clarify, outside the United States does not include Mexico and does not include the Bahamas. That is really part of the United States. Okay. I'd never been, I'd never been out, and I apologize if that offends anyone, but it's just not far enough away. Still all connected by land bridges and the sea very closely. So I decided, and we're just going to bounce into this story because I've been meaning to talk to you about it, and it's all relevant to the whole story of
yeah, we've never spoken about this.
Yeah. And so, and I'm going to do a video on it too at some point, but yeah. So, and the funny thing was, this gentleman said at one point he'd offered it, and I was still a little hesitant, but had I taken up the opportunity in that December when he first offered it, I would have flown on a private jet via Paris all the way to Saudi Arabia, to Jeddah, which was the city which is where I worked there. And I turned it down, which was regretful. So a couple months later, they actually flew back to the United States and into Houston. I met them in Houston, worked for them there, and then kind of honestly restarted my whole life by flying to Saudi Arabia. And since that day in 2010, my life's never been the same, and it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, but predominantly highs, very little lows. Saudi Arabia is a fascinating place, and for those that haven't traveled or worked in a foreign country, you're called an expat, an expatriate. And what is so fun about that, being in a country like Saudi Arabia? Now, Saudi Arabia, to be clear, is one of the most strict Muslim countries in the world. There's no alcohol. They are, in most places, the women are required to wear a covering, face covering or hair covering. The actual rule is just hair covering. What is it? I actually am really good at geography. Believe it or not, I actually really am. I'm so good at trivia and geography that I annoy people because I usually win our Trivial Pursuit games. And that is because I like to read the encyclopedia and pretend I was reading about subjects or clearing words when I was in Scientology. But so I love this. Okay, so Saudi Arabia, very strict, and they're very. I'm going to brush over a lot of stuff because I want to talk about this in depth so I can get some question answer period, because a lot of you are going to ask, what was it like being an American in Saudi Arabia? And my story might surprise you, but I'm not gonna negate this one little fact that I always found amusing, is that by being in Saudi Arabia, I was the furthest from Scientology anyone could ever be, and with absolutely no connection. In fact, Scientology is illegal in Saudi Arabia, and a part of that made me smile a little bit, because they couldn't spy on me, they couldn't do anything. There was no way I was contactable while I was there, and a part of that made me really happy. Anyway,
the guy who hired you to go to Saudi Arabia, did he know about your Scientology story?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I told. So yeah, I talk about that, and he had actually read Dianetics well in college. He went to Harvard. And he actually had read parts of Dianetics, and he was like, "Oh, that's interesting," but it didn't really make sense, which always makes me laugh when he told me that. He's a very, very smart individual. He's a Harvard law graduate, and the family there. Look, one thing about Saudi Arabia, most people don't understand, is a lot of Saudi Arabia, especially in the coastal cities like Jeddah, they're very Americanized. If you go there on a weekend and you go down the main strip and there's a PF Chang's or a Cheesecake Factory, the line is out the door and around the corner. The person who got the rights to have American restaurants in Saudi Arabia, who owns those restaurants, makes a killing, because it is such a, everything about the American culture, Saudi Arabia just digs. And there's a whole bunch of stories. There's a relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States government that goes so far back that you don't really ever read about. It's not promoted, but if you looked for it, it's pretty easy to find. And can
I jump in and say something real quick?
Yeah.
I think it's a common American misconception that a lot of these foreign countries that are portrayed very negatively in our press must hate America, because our press seems to hate them. When I went to China to visit my friend Nathan, I thought people were asking me, my American friends, "Oh my God, are you going to be okay? Are you going to be safe?" Because the media would have you think that they just hate us. China, the Chinese people are infatuated with American culture. As an American, first of all, I went to some Chinese cities that had never seen a white person before. They love America more than we love America. Don't trust what you see in the media.
No, don't at all.
So this couple that you're working for, were they Saudi?
Yes, they actually were. Yeah. Okay. And actually they were historically famous Saudi, because they were part of the original. Okay, so ready? History. Okay, this is the thing my friends dislike about me most when I lecture. So gear up, everyone. This is gonna be fun. I'm gonna give you a quick little story about this. So Saudi Arabia is a Bedouin nation, desert people that roamed. They were never in one place for too long. And up until they found oil, they were a very poor nation. They had no export. I think the Silk Roads went through Saudi, so they really transported stuff over the desert. When the oil struck, when they found oil in Saudi Arabia, of course, the royal family, the Al Saud family, got the rights to all that and received all the money. But what happened is about 100 merchant families that were close to the royal family were able to get transportation, energy, electricity, car dealerships, all the infrastructure, construction, all the infrastructure needed to now build a modern state. And the money used to finance all that was the oil money. So there is a set of wealthy, just like the Rockefellers in the United States, the same sort of concept, the railroad builders and all that kind of stuff. But this was in, pretty much modern time, 1916 to 1920. I forget exactly when the oil thing cracked in Saudi. So the person I worked for there, the patriarch of that family, it was one of his cousins, was the original person that started selling generators and started selling power in Saudi Arabia. And now, obviously, that family is humongous. And I worked for one of the primary figures in that family. And like you said, again, they love America. They come here all the time. And in Saudi, if you're American, you are a VIP. And seriously, and to explain that, I'll give you an idea. So first of all, Jeddah is a beach town in Saudi Arabia. It's got some of the best scuba diving in the world. The water is crystal clear and blue. It's the Red Sea. It's quite amazing. And as you come in and out of Jeddah, it's protected because there are regions of Saudi Arabia that do have some individuals that aren't particularly fans of the United States, but they won't let them into the major cities for the protection of the expats. Now,
wow.
So that means sometimes on a Friday night, if you're coming back in from the outskirts of Saudi Arabia or Jeddah, they have checkpoints to make sure that the people coming in to the city have a valid driver's license, or because they have a watch list, just like the United States, they have a watch list. Well,
wow. I
remember I was in line and I pull up in my car and I had a lady in the front. I had a flight attendant lady that I was dating at the time who was from Spain, and she's a unbelievable person, fantastic person. Yeah, well, I'll tell you about that too. So if you're an American there, it's all nurses, teachers, and flight attendants. And so, I got to know a lot of nurses, teachers, and flight attendants, but for longer than 20 minutes. But so I'm going through this checkpoint, and sometimes these checkpoint guards can be pretty serious. And I pull up, and I could be German, right? I'm not necessarily American just by my looks. And so he's like, ID now. And I said, sure. And I said, let me pull up my ID. I'm just going to find it for 1 second. He goes, you Americani? I said, yeah, Americani. Yes. Go, get out, go. And I skipped like 14 people in line. He was just like, go, you're good. We don't even need to check. I mean, and even in, and this is one rule, and I think they've changed it now. So Saudi Arabia, again, has a horrible, at that point, didn't have a real good human rights record. And I could spend hours talking about bad things about Saudi Arabia. You can read about them, but there's also a lot of good things about Saudi Arabia, which you can also read about. But one of the things they did there, which was crazy, which was insane, is on Saturday night in Saudi Arabia, if you want to go to a mall or a large gathering place, if you're a single male, they would not let you in. So only married men and their wives or women, because Saudi men would go to the malls and try to hit on married women during when the peak season, when everyone was inside the mall. So they would try to keep people out. Yeah.
Okay, so hold on. I gotta ask. I got a couple different questions.
Yeah.
The American restaurants there that you mentioned, P.F. Chang's, whatever, you still can't order alcohol there, right?
No. Nope.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. So they drink soda. They drink so much soda there, which is why they have a little bit of a overweight pandemic there. Just so you know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there a difference between how they treat the local women and how they treat like American women? Are the American women expected to cover their hair and everything like the locals, or what?
So in my experience, no, there isn't a difference in how they treat them. What you had was strange is that some people, some ladies would cover their face and their hair, but the actual only requirement was to cover your hair. So as long as you were covering your hair to some degree with a headscarf or something like that, you could go anywhere. Now, if you were a blonde lady with a very white complexion, you got a lot of attention no matter what. But the police there knew.
Attention how? What are we talking about?
Meaning you would have a lot of Saudi men coming up to you and approaching you, or
telling you to cover your hair, or hitting on you? Hitting on
you. Yeah.
Huh.
They actually made sure to train the police there to be less aggressive towards the expatriate woman, whether it was an American, Spanish, or anything like that. They took it easy because they knew that they needed. Saudi didn't have a lot of professionals when it started, so they need these expat engineers, managers, and different people to help keep the infrastructure of that country going. So and the nurses and the doctors, etc. So they tried to be as polite as possible and nice as possible to them. But that being said, one of the weird rules was, and this will always get me. So like Scientology, sometimes they didn't think the rules all the way through. And I remember if you were going to the mall any day of the week and you went to a lingerie store, which I didn't go to frequently, so we're clear. Check this out. Women could not work in the mall. Okay. That was a rule, right? They could not work.
Couldn't work in the stores in the mall.
Yes. Because they didn't want to put the women in a position where a guy could hit on her or be inappropriate towards her, especially if she had a husband or something along that line. They didn't want to create a situation where that dynamic could happen. So in all the lingerie stores, of which there's tons in Saudi Arabia, they were all staffed by men. So when a lady had to go buy lingerie, what happened? She had to talk to a guy to buy it.
Okay, I see. They didn't think it through very well.
No, they didn't. No, and what's fun, I think they've changed that now. Since they've started doing reforms, and I haven't been there since they did but like they have movie theaters now, so that people can they edit the movie still. Like if there's a kissing scene, it's taken out. But they have movie theaters now. But the whole experience, I could talk for hours about my experiences there. But one thing was it was a good to be away from Scientology, and I was as far away as possible. And because I was in Saudi, and because of the type of visa I had to leave every 3 months. I just had to leave the country and then come back to reset my visa. And that's why I got to travel all over Europe. That's why I got to go to London and do all those travels. And that really was, and I said this in a video I did about the Union Jack behind my head, of what significance it has for me. And that is what the significance is. It's the first time I felt really, really free and out from under the thumb of Scientology. No one was checking on me. I wasn't having people ask me who my friends on Facebook were. I was free. I was on my own to do what I want and figure out my own life. And that's the significance that Saudi and that experience had on me. I'm going to save some more stories because I would love to answer questions on the subject of Saudi because that would be interesting. But I'll end with on Saudi. One last thing that was kind of fascinating. If you were a Saudi male and you were in a mall with a lady, the police had the ability to check if you guys were married, because if you weren't married, that was against their religious rules, and you just can't do that in an open setting.
You can't walk with someone you're not married to?
If it's a female. Yep. If it's a female and you are a Saudi male, yes. Inside a mall. Can a woman walk by herself? Yes.
Can the man walk by himself?
Yes. But if you're seen together, they'll check.
Wow.
I know. Yeah. So it's it's a little authoritarian there for sure.
A little bit. Not as authoritarian as the Sea Org still.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. They weren't. Yeah. They're not interrogating you after about what you did. And also to be clear, all the Saudi women underneath their black coverings that they had that basically covers the whole body, they're all dressed to a T. They're very well dressed underneath those. So
how do you know?
I could write a book just about Saudi because I am one of the few, like there's a lot of expats there, but not doing what I was doing. So for my boss there, I was a little bit of a showpiece. This American kid who worked for a family there. There was Americans there, but they were mostly working for the military, Raytheon, or have some military posting there. I was kind of a rare commodity. So I got to go in a lot of houses and spend a lot of time with different families' wives and see what really happens inside Saudi households.
So let me ask you real quick. If a Saudi woman, let's say she's dressed super nice, the Gucci, the Yves Saint Laurent, and they're wearing, what is it called, a burqa, or is it something else?
Yeah, I think a burqa, I might get this wrong. I think a burqa was a face covering, but okay, I could be wrong. Yeah, no,
they're wearing their dress.
Burqa is women burqa, men wear a white tobe. Yes, it's a burqa. Yeah.
So once they walk back into their house, even if you're there as a, a single American male, are they allowed to take that off in the house? And okay, so now you're seeing what they're wearing underneath.
And see, there you go. Yes, okay. Almost all the women I dealt with were comfortable enough taking that off, even though I was in their presence, which was why I got to see some stuff that no one else would see. Now there were some ladies that when they saw me, they would cover up their hair still. But those people were hijab. Yep. Thank you. I don't remember all the words. But yeah, so fascinating stuff. But my point was this. Because I was American, I could walk in with any girl, whether she was Saudi, whether she was Spanish, whether she was German. If I walked around in a mall, no one ever asked me if that was my wife or not, because I was American. And that's yeah. You get a free pass there if you're American. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is fascinating in itself, and most people don't know that. And I think Saudi's now open for tourism, so most normal people can go there. Before, you had to have some degree and you had to have some exact professional reason to get there, and it was so hard to get the visa to get there. Yeah.
I got to tell you, I'm amazed that they've been able to, I guess, exert the discipline as a nation or as a culture, particularly with more American influence, to really keep the alcohol out. Like, is that something people cheat on, or is that like, no, you don't cheat with the alcohol?
Yes, absolutely. So about 3 months before I left, I was in this wealthy Saudi. I had a French friend who I played tennis with. He had a wealthy Saudi friend, and he brought me in to his house once. And I'm walking by, and he's got this long hall of bedrooms on either side. And I'm walking down, and I turn to the right, and I see a room, I swear to God, with like 20 bottles of Belvedere, tequila, gin. I mean, we're talking loaded with alcohol. I'm like,
these guys are
cow.
such hypocrites.
Don't get me started. Yes. No. So one of the gigs there was that some of these, so there's about 1 million Saudi princes. And what they will do is they will go to different countries in Europe, buy alcohol, fly them back in on their private jets. And because they're in a private jet, security doesn't really pay attention to them, neither does customs. They bring them back in, and they sell bottles of Belvedere for $300.
Wow.
And what do they pay? $20 for it? 20 euros somewhere? It's a whole racket. It's a whole racket. Anyways, after I left Saudi, about 3 months later, I was on Instagram, and someone posted a video of a raid of a house showing all the alcohol, because they did crunch down on this, and it was that guy's house, and all the alcohol was outside. I was like, oh shit,
no,
yeah. But hey, look, and I went to many a party where there was homemade wine, and there would be some European guys that would make, and their wives would make homemade wine from fermented grape juice. I never tried that. I was like, no, thank you. I was friends with Marine Corps guys because I played on the softball team with the Marine Corps. And so the U.S. troops that are stationed there, they get booze. They're not allowed to take them off compound, but they get booze. And so where everyone lived was a giant compound, and you had a mix of expat professionals, engineers, and you had the Marines there. And so that Marines would throw a party, and if you were on that list, you got to go. You got real booze, and that's how. What
about female Marines?
I don't think I've ever met a female Marine there.
Oh, are you serious? I thought there was plenty.
It does.
Maybe they don't let the female Marines into Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Now, again, so if there's a base, and I believe there's 1 or 2 bases, and maybe one base in Saudi Arabia, I can't remember if they got disbanded. It was there when Kuwait was being attacked back in the 90s, and they put a base there just to protect Saudi from Iraq, because they were worried. The U.S. Was worried that they were going to invade Saudi Arabia, and we wanted whole story there. But of course, the U.S. wanted to protect Saudi Arabia in that instance. When I say the Marine Corps, it's not a large contingent of them. We're talking about the Marines that travel through Saudi to train the Saudi army and Saudi police and stuff on how to do different procedures. So there was maybe in Jeddah, 20 to 25 Marines. I don't remember there being a lady, and that's probably because no Saudi man would want a lady teaching them how to operate a machine gun, just by the nature of that culture. That's an educated guess.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then there was obviously ex-Marines that worked consulting jobs for Raytheon, did security for Raytheon and other U.S. firms that had positions in Saudi Arabia.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Tell you what, you told me to make sure that you did not forget to tell the story about Justin and Tommy Davis. What is that story?
Okay. So, because I want to lend some factual data to the mythical beast that is Justin, and his type of personality. And we're both kind of upbeat, but we're definitely different in a way. So when Mark was doing his original Blown for Good, and people started speaking out a little more, and they had the Xenu board or whatever, OCMB board group and all that stuff.
Operation Clambake.
You got it. Operation Clambake.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, Tommy Davis and his then wife were going around and contacting people to make sure they weren't connected to Mark and to other people, and sort of kind of find the ex-Scientologists that had recently left or ex-Sea Org members and try to cut all those lines with them. And I believe Mike Sutter from RTC was also doing that with another person. So they were just kind of making the rounds. And a close friend of mine got a call from them, and Tommy Davis and his wife came out to meet with them, and they were like, we just want to make sure you're not connected to anyone and this sort of stuff. And they were, my close friend was under the radar. So she spoke to me, but she didn't really know what my status was because, you know, they didn't issue my declare. Right. But we had been friends for so long that we stayed in touch. And by that nature, she also had, you know, talked with Justin, or her and her husband had talked with Justin once or twice. So, she, when talking to Tommy Davis, she was like, hey, I just want to make sure, you know, is it okay if I talk to Justin and Sterling? Cause I want to make sure, you know, like that's okay. I don't want to have any trouble. And Tommy apparently responded with, yeah, I think Sterling's okay. And you can definitely talk to Justin. So later on, she tells me this story. And of course I'm like, oh, that's weird, but okay, whatever. You know, I'm fine. I guess I was still speaking to my dad. And at this time there was no obvious connections for me to anyone, but I was obviously talking to Mark and everyone else at this time, but there was I hadn't come out to talk about things. So there was no real reason for me to be on the radar. Well, I told Justin, I said, yeah, Tommy Davis apparently said you're okay to talk to. And he said, well, that's bullshit. I said, I don't understand why you're getting upset. He goes, that's bullshit. They think I'm on the good list? That's not okay. He got on the phone with Osa, got Kirsten on the phone and yelled at her. Said, why is Tommy Davis going around telling people that I'm okay to talk to you? That's bullshit. I'm not a Scientologist and I don't like you guys. And then hung up the phone.
Wow.
He was actually offended that someone said he was worth talking to. You know what I mean? Like, I could not believe that, but that's Justin. So yeah, that was amazing. Paraphrased. So hopefully I got that story somewhat correct.
How
absolutely
dare you tell Scientologists it's okay to talk to me? You son of a bitch.
How dare you? No, so that was part of it. But yeah, hey, I know we're gonna go to questions. So the point I wanted to say, even though we go off in a million directions, was that I hope by doing this video, and I hope by keep talking about it, and you know what you're doing with YouTube, that one of the things I hope Scientology changes, or at least realizes, is that they can't dump people anymore. They can't let people just go and tell them they're on their own. That's not okay, and should be absolutely stopped. And is one of the things I'm going to cover on my channel to try to help make a difference for that, because no one should have to spend that amount of time trying to figure out what they do and go through the pain of being broke and not being able to find out what you're doing, and the constant stress of it, because you've already been working in a slave culture your entire life. You don't deserve to have that when you leave. And I wanted to bring some attention to that from my own point of view, because I know other people have already.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that we're so outspoken about promoting the fact that the Aftermath Foundation is there to help people who are leaving Scientology, and you know, the disconnection, the fair game, the lack of funds, the lack of options, that's what the Aftermath Foundation is here to help people through that transition period. And I think the fact that Scientology knows we promote the hell out of that has caused them to start giving people a little bit more money. At some point, they weren't even letting people leave the Sea Org without having a job lined up ahead of time. Now, wow. I'm sure it's one of those shit entry-level jobs working for a Scientologist who's spying on you.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I want the Sea Org members who are in the bubble to know. You don't have to go through that whole transition period where Scientology is dictating where you can live, where you can work, who you can work for, what skills you can be hireable for. Like, screw that. You know, we can help you get a real job anywhere you want. And honestly, the more help we make available to people leaving the Sea Org, the better the Sea Org is going to have to treat people when they're leaving, because they don't want them to run into our arms.
Yeah, right. For sure. For sure.
You know?
You're right. And you're right. That is what the Aftermath Foundation is completely about. Sorry, I forgot to mention that at the end. But yeah, it is. And you're probably right. Just to keep them out of your hands, they're probably going to do a lot of extra work, which, hey, good. That's a forced change. The whole thing's reversing now, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, you're dictating what they're doing.
I know.
By your actions.
The tail's wagging the dog now.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, we got a few comments we'll go through here. Let's see. I'm only going to take things that are kind of particularly topical, relevant. Anon says, took me a year after I mentally left Scientology to realize the meter was BS. Yeah, I always knew it was BS even when I was still in. In fact, that's one of the benefits of having been trained thoroughly in how to use the e-meter is you realize it's bullshit. Like the process of how you learn how to use the e-meter teaches you that the e-meter is bullshit. And I wonder how many other people had that same realization while learning how to use the meter and how to audit. E-meter drill 22 and e-meter drill 25 prove the e-meter is bullshit.
Interesting. And I did no tech, absolutely zero tech training when I was there. I didn't even do the HQS. I didn't even do the PTSSB course. I think student hat was the farthest I ever got in training. So yeah, I didn't, I was only on the other end of the meter constantly.
See, that's interesting. Honestly, I wonder if there's any trained auditors who feel differently about it than I do. If you're trained as an auditor, you know that the e-meter basically does whatever the fuck you want it to do. That's the long and the short of it. Okay, Denver Stevo says, Sterling, greetings. You're kind of the shiz. Aaron Osa smells like poo. Catch the first real life appearance of Xenu tonight at 9 Eastern at my place on Xenu Nation. There you go. Good plug.
Nice.
Okay, John Sostovsky, Scientology would forbid Sterling's creative skills be used to write penthouse letters on the outside.
Thank you.
I think he's talking about our Dianetics After Dark talk.
Oh, yes.
Danny L. Luminati, thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Happy Chickadee. Hi, Aaron. Wanted to send so much love and support to you and all from SPTV. You've all been through shocking abuse, which should never have happened. Scientology must close, and David Miscavige and company jailed. Love from the, I was going to say from the UK. That's Australia. Love from Australia. Well, thank you so much.
I love how international this crowd is.
I know, right? Yeah. Hey, look, first super chat to Sterling.
Oh, that's right. I got monetized today.
You just got monetized today?
Yeah. I forgot to mention that. Yeah.
Congratulations.
I did. I sent myself $20. No.
Well, then you lost 30% of that because YouTube takes 30% up.
Dude, no. Oh, your lights. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my gosh. I even put in a fresh one before we started. Oh, that one's dead too. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. All right, hold on. I'm coming.
Hey, well, you're gone. I'm going to plug my interview with Biddy Blythe, my mom, on Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Round 2.
Excelente. Very cool. Thanks for the great investigative journalism. Well, thank you. Janda Panda, 207,000 subscribers. Aaron's channel is exploding. Yeah, it's been blowing up the last couple of weeks. For Rizzo.
Oh, it really has.
Wendy Schellebarger, thank you. Kay Tomset, Aaron, you continue to do amazing interviews, chats. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for watching, Kay. And Brooklyn Brewery was started by a U.S. journalist who resorted to making his own beer while stationed in Saudi Arabia.
Wow, really?
Awesome.
That's crazy. Okay.
Beans.
Oh,
from
sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So for those of you who don't know, near beer and fake beer was actually created because of Saudi Arabia.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So the person that created that did it so that there was beer to drink in Saudi Arabia, and then obviously brought it over to the United States after. So
they do sell non-alcoholic beer?
Yeah, they do. Yep.
Well, so that's interesting because that beer doesn't have zero alcohol.
Oh no, they must pull it out because they don't even sell mouthwash there with alcohol.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You can't get drunk drinking mouthwash, can you?
No alcohol, man.
It'd be
alcohol
disgusting.
is just yeah. No. Oof.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, free Xenu project. Aaron, don't ever get plug-in lights. We get such a kick out of you running to change the batteries. That's why I keep using the batteries. It's part of the culture now. You know?
No, I literally, my thing is I'm always going to stare at the screen when I'm trying to find all the questions to answer. So that's just going to be my thing.
Exactly.
Everyone's just going to have to deal with it.
All right. Well, this has been a blast, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this afternoon. And I'll call you after to help you with since you're monetized now, I'll have to show you some back office stuff to do with the videos once we're all done with the live.
Okay, great.
So anyway, thank you for hanging out with us, guys. Thank you as always to everyone who watches until the very end. And we'll talk
to you guys
to you
later.
soon.
Thank you.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.